Okay, so in the previous session, we have seen the configuration relating to asset under construction. This is also known as capital work in progress. So basically, the scenario is applicable when you have the construction at your place. Okay, when you are manufacturing or constructing something at your place, there we consider the capital work in progress scenario. It means if I want to have a factory building, what we will do, we will take one land, and on that we will construct the
బ్రో
building.
ఒకసారి
That
కోహోస్ట్ చేయవా?
I have it's already recording.
ఓకే, ఆల్రైట్, థ్యాంక్స్. సారీ బ్రో.
Okay, so so basically what happens is, instead of buying a factory building, what we will do, we will take a land, and that we will construct a building for factory. So there, in such case, we will use the capital work in progress. So we have seen the configuration relevant to this. So basically we require a separate, the asset class. Basically we require a separate asset class, and we need a separate number range and everything. The important thing in this case is the depreciation going to be 0% all the time until the asset is ready to use. Until that point in time, we will call it as capital work in progress, or AUC, asset under construction. So what happens in this case? Let's say if the particular asset happens in 3 years, let's say, we will keep on posting of all transactions relevant to the construction into this AUC asset. And once the asset is ready, we will create a separate asset, and we will move the values of AUC to the particular asset. So that's called a settlement. That process is called a settlement. Okay. So ultimately, what basically the scenario goes in this case is, okay. So how the scenario will be. Okay. So here, what happened to this? Okay. So what happens in this case is, first we will create one asset called AUC asset. This is normal asset using the AUC asset class. And we will keep on posting all the expenses, all the charges, whatever we have to this particular asset. For 3 years, we will keep on posting all the transactions. And we don't provide any depreciation on the AUC asset. Okay, so the building is now ready. Now what I will do, I'll create a building, one asset. I will create building with some depreciation rate. And what I'll do, the expenses, whatever we have posted into this AUC asset, will transfer the amount from AUC to the building. That is called settlement. So it means all these expenses will move to building, and AUC value will show, AUC asset will have zero balance. And all these amounts will move to building, and that is called capitalization, that is called settlement. And once the amount, all these amounts are there in the building, we will start providing the depreciation. That's the whole, the scenario in this case. Let's do this thing. Let's run this scenario. So first and foremost, we require to create the asset under construction, AUC asset. Okay, let me create an asset under that, AS01. Okay, now what is our What is our asset class? For AUC, we have, I think, capital work in progress X700. Yeah, X700, just enter, mention it as factory building. Okay, factory building. And cost center, if you want, we can mention cost center. It is not compulsory. It's not mandatory. And if you see over here, always it will show as 0% depreciation. Just say we got an asset created. Okay, now we have AUC. Whatever the expenses that are required to be posted for this construction of building, all have to be posted into this asset. So let's post few transactions and let's do that. So acquisition, external acquisition, F-90. I'll put some date. So let me take, for I'll say August. I'm taking some August date. I will say 1250 and I will say here 77 lakhs and transaction type is 100 and taking the amount. Okay, star, I'm taking a star, saving. Capital difference non-operating could not be found for this area. Okay, so the problem is with some depreciation area. So what I will do, AS02, I'll go here, go into the depreciation areas. Now you can see here 40, we don't have 80. Why this is expecting? Okay, that's fine. Let us maintain the same thing here. I don't know why this is expecting. Okay, A190, I'm going into A190, 1001 and chart of accounts, account determination, 7,000, balance sheet, and for 80, go into details and it is expecting some information. What it is expecting, let's see. F-90, I'm putting some date. Anyways, the system will not allow us to do that. Let us see what it is expecting. Okay, so I'm taking now. Okay, so when I'm trying to simulate system, capital difference non-operating expenses could not be found. Capital difference non-operating, capital differences and non-operating. So here I'm just maintaining some non-operating related stuff, saving. So now I don't understand why it is expecting, but since the depreciation area 80 is deactivated, so it should not expect that. But anyways, let's see now. 16 August 2019. So taking the vendor 1250 and 70 taking the asset 100. Okay, taking the amount, go to document, simulate. Okay, right, and just save. Document is posted. So we have posted some transaction to that AUC. Let me post one more transaction using ABZON. Okay, selecting ABZON, selecting the asset number, and this time I will select September, and I will say 2500, and in additional details I will use offsetting account. Okay, go to simulate. Okay, and post. So we have posted 2 transactions. If we want, we can post like that. We will post multiple transactions. Let's say July. I will consider July. Okay, I will say 3000, and I will enter an offsetting account directly saving. Okay, posted some transactions. So July, August, September, we have posted few transactions. Like that, we will keep on posting transactions until and see the asset explorer, asset history. Okay, asset explorer, asset history. You can see all the amounts posted. In 2019, we have posted these many transactions. Like that, we will keep on posting for 3 years, 4 years, whatever the period that construction has, we will consider all those amounts over here. Now, in this AUC, the total expenses we spent is 6,750. Now, the factory building is ready. What do we do now? We will have to create another asset. This is not the actual asset. So we will be creating the actual asset, and we will transfer the entire 6,750 to that particular asset. Okay, so to that particular asset, that is called settlement. So based on that, what happens is the amount of this AUC will be moved to the actual asset, and we will calculate the depreciation from then. Okay, so let's do that part. Now sometimes we may have another scenario. We may have a scenario like this. I have AUC, I'll just say construction of a building. There are two buildings happening, factory building and office building. For both of them, I've created only one AUC. For both of the factory and office, I've created only one AUC. It depends. It depends on the business, case to case. Okay. If the business wants to create only one AUC for both the constructions like factory building and office building, what we will do, we will create one AUC for construction of a building, and we'll keep on posting all the transactions, all the expenses into this. What kind of expenses normally we'll have in the construction? We'll have to buy cement, we'll have to buy iron, steel, we'll have to spend amount on labor, we have to take some missionaries on hire. Okay, so we need supervisor, we need a lot of other electricity, we need water. These kind of expenses normally we will have to incur. So all these expenses will start posting into this AUC. Okay, at the end of 3 years or 4 years, let's say, we spent 1 million on this. Now this 1 million we spent for both factory and office. Now it is the business to decide how much portion among these 10 lakhs, how much should be concerned, how much should be assigned or allocated to factory, how much should be allocated to office. That is what the business has to tell. Out of 10 lakhs, let's say 60% to factory and 40% to office. Yes, we can do that as well. It means these are called receiver assets, receiver category receivers. You'll understand that clearly later. Receivers. So in this case, we have got two different assets. We may have multiple assets also, not only two, three, four, five. you can you can maintain as many assets as you want. Now, from this, how do you want to apportion this amount to all these? You need to specify a percentage or some amount or some ratio. You need to specify that. So it means out of 1 million, 60% will hit factory, 40% will hit office. That is the point that we will have to mention. So what I'm trying to tell you here is, in the case of receiver, you may have one asset or you may have multiple assets. If at all you have one asset, 100% going to be the apportionment basis. If at all you have multiple assets, receiver assets, then you need to specify what is the percentage that the uh, business wants to apportion, how much business wants to be allocated to that particular asset. So that is what we will have to enter. Any questions here in this?
So this is called a settlement profile, right?
Yes,
Okay, and there is a settlement rule too, right? Where in which we
exactly.
can.
That is,
Okay,
this
okay,
process is called settlement rule.
okay.
This one is called settlement rule.
And what is the settlement profile then?
The settlement profile will have all this information where
Mm,
you are settling this to.
okay,
Say, are you settling to fixed asset, or are you settling to a cost center, settling to something
okay.
else? That will have the settlement profile. Of course,
And
don't think about all of these
okay,
things at the moment. You just understand about this
okay.
part. Any questions on
Uh,
this?
no, and you said that we can settle this once the building is finished, or
Mhm.
we have to just settle every month end.
Not every month.
Okay,
That's what I'm saying. Whether it is 3 years, 10 years, 1 year, 5 years, 5 months, or something. Until unless the asset is ready, we are not going to settle from here to here. Only once the asset is ready, then we will be creating those assets and we will maintain the same thing,
okay, all right.
and we will settle then only.
Okay. I just, recently joined the new project in California, and they had given me the material, I have to go through. And, in that, this is, you have to just create the internal order first. From internal order,
That's a different scenario.
oh, that's a difference. Okay.
From internal order, I think I did mention this in one of my earlier sessions. From internal order, you need to settle it monthly. Every month
Monthly.
you
Okay.
need to settle. From internal order to AUC, and
Yes.
once the asset is ready, from AUC to the main asset.
Okay, cool.
That's a different scenario. We are not going to touch that one now.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So here also, from AUC to main asset, only once the main asset is ready, then only we will settle. We are not going to settle until the asset is completely ready. Okay, now coming to this AUC scenario, we will be creating an asset under AUC. We'll keep on posting all the transactions into this, maybe 1 month, 2 months, 1 year, 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is. We'll keep on posting all these transactions. Once the asset is ready, we will mention the same thing. We may have one asset or multiple assets in the receivers. In the receiver, we may have multiple assets also. If at all you have multiple assets, we need to specify the percentage or amount or proportion, whatever we will have to enter that. If at all you have only one asset, that's going to be 100%. Okay, so this is basically, something about the AUC. So we have posted transactions to AUC. Okay, now the asset is ready. Now the asset is ready. We are not settling monthly. We have to settle only once the asset is ready. Okay. So what we will do now, let's get into this asset. Okay, AW01, and I think we have seen. So these are the amounts that we have. Okay, 6,750. Now this needs to be transferred to the actual asset. So in such a case, what we will have to do is we'll have to create a new asset for building. Okay, AS01, and select the relevant asset class. For building, we have one. Yeah, building, we have X400. Select the same thing. Just enter. I will say factory building. Okay, I will enter some cost center. And depreciation area is the one that I will have to see. Okay, and I can deactivate it from here also. This is for deactivation. Okay, now I'm just deactivating. I will say okay, I'm entering the date. So this ordinary depreciation start date going to be this. Okay, I'm just saving now. We have got one asset, building. So let me create one more building called office building. I want the settlement happens to these two assets. So I can deactivate at the asset master level also. Okay, so I'm deactivating, and here I will enter the time. Okay, so I'm just saving. So I've got two assets, 4 lakhs, 4 lakh 1. It means I have two receiver. I have two receivers. Now, where do we need to maintain that? Okay, so what we have done, we have created one AUC. We started posting all the transactions into that. And once the asset is ready, we will have to apportion this amount. We will have to transfer this amount to the asset, original asset. Now, in the case of original assets, we have two assets. So where do we maintain this receiver process, receiver category? So we will discuss those points now. So I'm going back to the postings. We have one called capital asset under construction, distribute and settle. These two are the transaction codes we can use. Distribute to mention what are the assets, what are the receiver assets, and what is the percentage. If at all you have only one, we can enter 100%. And we can settle from here also, and we have another transaction code. We can settle from here also. Okay, so you can distribute and settle using this transaction code, or you can just distribute over here and using this transaction code, you can settle it. It's going to be the same. There is no change at all. Okay, so firstly, what I want to do, I want to have receiver object, receiver assets. So in order to do that, I will have to use this transaction code AIAB called distribute. Path for this is easy access, accounting, financial accounting, fixed assets, posting, capital asset under construction, AIAB distribute. Just enter here, company code is this thing, and asset is this one. So what is our AUC asset? Select the AUC asset here. This is our AUC asset. Select AUC asset. Press enter. Okay, everything is perfect. Now execute. Okay, so these are the amounts there in that. How come you have? Okay, 6,250 is the normal one. Let us see. I mean, I think we have both. Let us see what are these. Okay, now what we will have to do, as I said, you can settle it from here also. Now what you have to do, first you need to select the receiver object. So select all. Here you have an option called enter distribution rule. So here in the distribution rule, you will be settling, you will be mentioning this part. Okay, so distribution and settlement profile. Now, if you see over here, the settlement profile, these are the existing settlement profiles. But if you want, we can use the existing one, or we can create our own. The important thing in the case of settlement profile is what is the receiver category. Okay, you will understand that part very clearly now. So I'm just closing this. I want to maintain that part. So I'm coming out from here. Okay, I'm coming out from here. Let me go into SPRO. We have multiple areas to maintain the configuration, settlement profile configuration. So under asset accounting, we have master data, not here in this master data, transactions, capitalize asset under construction, define transaction type, allow transaction types, determine. Now define and assign settlement profile. Define and assign settlement profile. So path for this is IMG, financial accounting, asset accounting, transactions, capitalization of asset under construction, define and assign settlement profile. Okay, just execute, define settlement profile. You can see all of them here. We have other areas where we can maintain the similar thing. We will discuss during our product costing and internal order cases. The standard one is AI. You can use the same thing, or if you want, you can create your own. When you go into details, the important part is the default object type. This part is very much important. And here, the fixed asset, this should be either optional or required. If you mention it as not settled, system will throw up an error. We will discuss that part. Now here you need to maintain what document type do you want to use and what is the number of months that you want to keep. And what is the maximum number of distribution rules? This we will understand little later. I'm mentioning is that to be settled in full amount. I want full amount to be settled. Okay, what is this allocation structure? We will see little later. Now here indicator. This is what I was mentioning, percentage settlement. If you have multiple receiver objects, 60%, 40%, or 30%, 70%, what percentage? Based on this, it will allow you to post. It will allow you to enter the percentage. Equivalence numbers, it means proportions. Our amount settlement. Out of 10 million, 5 lakh, 5 million, out of 10 million, let's say 6 lakh million should go to one asset, 4 lakh million should go to the other asset. It means we are entering the amount directly. So in that case, we will be selecting this. Okay. So let us create our own and let's come back here. Now, before we get into this, we need to have allocation. We need to have allocation structure, because you have an allocation structure here. This allocation structure, if you double click here, it says as allocation structure. So you need to have an allocation structure. Based on the allocation structure, then we will be maintaining the same thing. So in order to have allocation structure, what is allocation structure? That we will see now. Okay, so what I will do, I'll go into the controlling, internal order, actual postings. Okay, settlement here. You can see here allocation structure, settlement profile. The moment you execute, it will take you to the same place. Maintain settlement profile. It's the same. There is no change in that. Okay, now let us create allocation structure. What is this allocation structure? So if at all you have any expenses, if you are posting any expenses, okay, you are posting few transactions, okay, some expenses you are posting, then if you want to transfer all the expenses, if you transfer the expenses to a receiver object, then you will be using the allocation structure. It says as allocation, it means the expenses, GLs you are considering. Let me just get into that and show you. Just I'm executing here. You can see some allocation structure. You can see some allocation structure. Now, if you see the allocation structure, okay, if you see the allocation structure, you have assignment. What are these assignments? You may have multiple expenses, right? Administration expenses, sales expenses, office expenses. If you want to keep all of them, you can keep over here. It means what are the revenue cost elements, what are the material consumption GLs, what are the other cost related GLs, what are the secondary GLs, all you are mentioning. So these are called assignments. For each of the assignment, you will be entering a source. It means what are the cost elements involved in this? You will be entering here. You will be entering what are the cost elements. And where this needs to be settled. The settlement has to happen to a receiver category. What is the receiver category? What is the receiver category? That is what we are mentioning. What is this receiver category? If you go here in the new entries, you have multiple receiver categories. Okay, you have multiple receiver categories. If I say FXA, it means it is fixed asset. So the moment I say fixed asset, system expects the receiver object as a fixed asset only. It will not accept anything, any any anything other than the fixed asset. Now, if I say GL account we will use in some cases that we will discuss later. Now, if I say ORD, it means the receiver object going to be any order. Order in the sense it can be an internal order, production order, process order, plant and maintenance order, QM order. It can be of any order. Okay, so the moment I say order here, receiver category as order, then system expects one order to be entered over there. Now, similarly, if I mention profitability segment, it means it will hit the profitability segment and accordingly it requires some input. So in the case of profitability segment, we have a concept called characteristics. So we will have to enter them over there. Value fields characteristic, that information we have, that we will see later. So the ultimately what I'm trying to tell you here is the receiver category. What exactly the receiver category is? It means I have AUC now. I have some value to the AUC. Now where am I transferring the amount? Am I transferring the amount to an asset, or am I transferring to an order? Am I transferring to something else? That is what we will have to enter over here in the receiver category. Any questions? You have WBS, you have different ordered, I mean, the receiver categories. So you can use any one of them. It is based on the business requirement, based on the business process. We will have to select the relevant receiver category. So the moment I say receiver category something, now when you go here, it expects the relevant receiver category related thing only. It means if I select FXA, system expects assets only, the actual assets only. Okay, system expects the actual assets only. Any questions?
No, Nanda.
Okay. The next we have is by cost element. What exactly by cost element is? Basically, this information is important when we are doing the product costing or internal order settlement. It is very important for us. Now, what exactly this by cost element and by settlement cost element? This settlement cost element is going to be a secondary cost element. It is going to be a secondary cost element. It means what happens is you have some transactions posted into fixed assets. Okay. Now all these transactions are moving to a new asset, to asset, another object, I would say, another category, receiver category. When I'm taking the values from AUC to the other category, suppose here I have AUC 1 million. Now I have object, receiver object. It can be anything. So when I'm taking this 1 million to the receiver object, I need a carrier. I need a carrier. So it means someone should pick up this amount and should post it over here. That is nothing but a carrier. So what carrier do you want? Do you want the primary cost element or do you want the secondary cost elements? What are primary cost elements and secondary cost elements? So let's discuss that before we get into this. Okay, so now This is what a finance, this is controlling. Okay. When I'm posting any transactions, basically I will use the GLs, nothing but primary cost elements. Now within the GLs, we have asset GLs, liability GLs, expenses GLs, and income GLs. These are all the GLs, and these are considered as a cost elements. Balance sheet items are not considered as a cost elements. Only the profit and loss items GLs are considered as a cost elements. These cost elements are nothing but primary cost elements. These are nothing but primary cost elements. Why do we require a primary cost element? When I'm posting any transaction in finance using an expenses is nothing but my primary cost element. And the moment it says as a cost element, how can I say it is a cost element? The moment I assign the cost element category, right? The moment I assign a cost element category in the GL master FS00, this expenses GL will become the primary cost element. And the moment I post any transaction to these expenses, the amount will move from the amount will not only be appeared in finance, it will also appear in controlling since it is a primary cost element. So you can see the value as GL in finance, you can see the same value in controlling as cost element. Okay, so it means primary cost element basically, what does it mean? The transaction will happen in finance and the same will get updated in controlling with the help of primary cost element. Now, what are secondary cost elements? Secondary cost element within this controlling area, I want, I want, uh, I want one second. So this is an internal order, I would say, and this is a WBS or something else. I want the value of internal order to be moved to WBS, or I want internal order value to be moved to profitability segment, or or sales order, or any production order, can be anything. Okay, so what is happening? These are all called CO objects, controlling objects. When I move the value from one object to the other object, I require, when I move the values from one object to the other object, I need the secondary cost elements. Secondary cost elements. So what I'm trying to tell you here is primary cost element, the expenses posted in finance or incomes posted in finance will pass on, not only it will not only be there in finance, it will also move on to controlling. While moving on to a controlling, it will take an object. See, that is the reason why when we are posting any expenses transaction, system expects a cost center. System expects a cost center. So it means while moving the value into the controlling, it will take a base. It will take a base, any object. So if I'm posting a transaction cost center, and from cost center, I want to move to profitability segment, then for moving within the controlling, for moving the values from one object to the other object, you require secondary cost elements. Secondary cost element does not hold any value. It is just a carrier. It will take the value from cost center, move it to profitability segment, or internal order to the production order. It can be anything. So it is just a carrier, I can say. Okay, so do you want to use primary cost element as a carrier or a secondary cost element a carrier? That you will be mentioning over here. You want by cost element, or you want to keep a separate secondary cost element? How do you want to do that? So that is what basically we will explain it over here. And we have one more thing called assessment cost element. This we will discuss later when in the cost center accounting. In the cost center accounting, we will discuss that point very clearly. Any questions? Okay, so we will discuss the settlement profile and we will settle the transaction because it will take another roughly half an hour time. So we will run this tomorrow. Okay. If you
Yes,
don't
well,
have any questions, we can continue tomorrow. It will take another half an hour time. Settlement, I mean, until the settlement happens, we will discuss all of them tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.